Good morning, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. It's a glorious day for us down here in Victoria. Now, coming up with me, I've got Andrew Kennett, the scientist who I said he was going to join us for an interview. He's going to talk to us all about waterback, so sit back, enjoy the segment. It's a little bit of a Q&A, me and him talking about waterback and black grit, your favourite fertiliser, amendment fertiliser. You'll get to know all the ins and outs about the two products. Now, once this little episode finishes, tune into 693. That's our AM dial on radio, because we're doing live gardening with me, Darren, and Andrew will be joining us as well to be able to take your call. So whatever you hear now with me and Andrew, if you've got any questions, dial into 693 with us on the radio and talk to us, ask your question, and we'll have Andrew there to be able to help you with it. And don't forget, vasilisgarden.com. It's our weekend. A buy one, get one free on Vasilis Choice and 20% off everything else online that's already discounted. The code word, cucumber. From me, Vasili Maresi. That's vasilisgarden.com. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning, Vasili.
Thanks for joining us. It's great to have you with me this morning. Give us your background. What's your professional title?
I am an agricultural scientist, work for the government and industry on a variety of production issues. About 20 years ago, I did a lot of work in water quality and clarity, and that led on to the development of waterback, which is a probiotic Bacillus subtilis culture of microbes, and we trialled it around Australia and got fantastic results, and it's now sold and available through Vasilis Garden.
How did waterback come to surface? I know there's so many other different products that you can use out there in circulation. By comparison, yours is a microbe. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. It's a culture of microbes or Bacillus subtilis bacteria, which we like to call, as they're friendly bacteria, we like to call them microbes. Yeah. It came about, I guess, because the use of these microbes is closely related to agriculture. And it goes back hundreds of years when they used to use, when hay used to be left in the paddock and it would sort of just go off a bit, and farmers or landholders used to collect it up, and they just found almost by accident that if you threw it in a dam or a water hole, it actually cleaned the water up and made it.
Really?
Yeah.
So like all things
it's
in
actually nature. Yeah, exactly. And it's actually had a nickname, hay bacillus. And if you look it up or Google it, you'll see the reference to these microbes or bacillus or these bacteria as hay bacillus, and that's because hay left in the paddock of sheaves, even before machinery, the microbes would get into that cut hay and start to cultivate and break it down, and it was found, as I said before, if you scoop it up and put it in a dam or water hole, it would actually clear up the water.
Wow!
So what we have in waterback, and so what we have in the waterback is a concentrated culture of them. So we're able to present billions per gram of these user-friendly microbes into a water source. And you know, a good analogy is if you look at a rainforest creek, you never see algae, do you?
No.
And because that's healthy, and it's got all the soil environment around, and microbes are being fed and breed and develop into it. And it's just in artificial water storages like dams, water holes or tanks where you've got none of that natural soil environment to provide the bacillus microbes.
Okay. Wow. So you've been able to bring that together now and compact it into these little sachets, correct?
Yeah. So we've had these concentrated, and the microbes are incorporated in a charcoal feed source base in these little 10-gram sachets, and they're in a dormant state in the sachets.
So they don't ever use by day?
No. I mean, we've had them tested by laboratory, actually one of the big ALS labs in Melbourne, and decades. You know, as long as they're stored in a cool, dry environment. They're dormant, and when the sachets are put in water, Vasily, they come to life and start
And that's the
feeding on
thing.
that
I mean,
charcoal.
I've done some of the trials in my own place, and I've got a couple of troughs there and a little pond there. And I have found great results in it. And it does take a number of days for it to start activating. But initially, the first result you see is that your water blackens, and that's because of is that the
Exactly.
charcoal?
That's the charcoal carrier, yeah.
Yeah.
And that provides an immediate feed source for the microbes. And there's some advantages of the charcoal because that's well known to absorb toxins as well.
Yes.
But yeah, that's a little bit of a side effect, that blackening, but that quickly dissipates as the microbes feed on it and breed and start to consume the
we're talking about blue and green algae. Or is it just organic matter or blue-green algae, or so what does it really consume?
Well, what we say is that the microbes modulate a number of parameters, and I've actually made a list of them here because it is quite extensive. Alkalinity, which is calcium, magnesium salts, pH, dissolved oxygen, total dissolved solids, phosphates, nitrogen compounds, hardness, heavy metals, even oil spillage. It reduces diseases, organic matter, and helps in transparency of the water. So there's quite an extensive list.
That isn't that's a huge list. You've never shared that one with me.
It is. What we say is it modulates, and by modulates we mean it has a controlling influence over that great long list.
Yeah.
Now, there's a sort of couple of parameters. The sufficiency on that depends on dissolved oxygen, metals, pH, temperature, and salinity. So, like everything, there's some factors that will influence its efficiency, but generally, it'll have a positive effect on most of those parameters. That great long list we just discussed, and it's great for treating dirty water. I mean, we've always said that if you've got pea soup, if it's as thick as pea soup, that's sort of the extreme that we probably have to walk away from. But anything from as a preventative right through to that, we can help to clean it up.
And this can be used widely. Now, I need to understand in what circumstances, apart from the fact that you've got pea soup and you won't touch that, but we can use it in the likes of troughs, dams, ponds. Are there any benefits to animals if they were drinking the water that's been treated with water back?
Well, the obvious ones are it's going to be cleaner water, so that's always going to help any animal to be able to drink cleaner water. There's a lot of research and in the literature that Bacillus subtilis microbes help digestion in the gut, but they're sort of extra secondary effects. So the answer is, it's healthy water, healthy clean water, and it's just going to keep flowing through health benefits from consuming that. And one thing to always remember that, as we said before, rainforest creeks, which are probably very rich in Bacillus subtilis, never get algae, and of course are very healthy sources of water.
So we've got a container. They come in, I think they're 200-gram containers.
With a 10-gram sachet. Yeah.
Okay, and the sachet itself, what's the ratio? How do you use it?
So everything's based around volume. In other words, a quantity of the microbes per unit area of volume down to about a meter's depth. So 10-gram sachet for 1,000 litres. It sounds a lot, but you can't actually overdose your water. But you obviously don't want to waste your money. So, but that's the rate, and it's just a matter of starting off with what we call a first inoculation of your water rate, and then every 2 weeks, as need be, reapply to your water, depending if it's a trough or a tank or a dam or whatever it is. Yeah. But first of all, before treatment, it's important to sort of just look at the reasons why your water's gone green, and make sure that you know, to your best of your knowledge, there hasn't been any chlorine or copper or other chemicals put in before, because that's going to affect the results. So if you're reasonably happy that, you know, that hasn't happened, then yeah, continue on, work out your dosage.
So why not just get a big bale of hay? Sorry, mate, but I was just going back to the hay.
Could.
But that's
you could, but
how much would you use how much hay do you need to put in a cubic meter of water? 1,000 litres.
You probably need a couple of tons.
All right, I'll stick to the 10-gram sachet. Sorry?
Yeah, you're better with your 10-gram sachet, because we've got, I think it's 10 billion CFUs per gram. So, you know,
wow.
you'd need, you might, I don't know how much is in the hay, depends on the hay, but you might need 10 tons of hay.
Now, the product is available on our website, and we do have it available through a lot of our stockers, and anybody who's interested in seeing the product or trialing it out, check out our website, thesilliesgarden.com, or go to our stockers page if you don't want to purchase it from the website directly, and you'll find your local or nearest stockist in your state or suburb, and give it a go, because we've tried it in our little fish pond. We've put it in our trough as well, and I totally overwhelmed with the results on it. We actually did a trial because it was hard to film it for the purpose of the filming, to see the before and after because of the reflection of light and sun and all that. So we did a sample in a couple of our clear buckets, food buckets. So we had a litre of it, and admittedly we put a fair amount of water back into a small amount of body of water. So it didn't take long for it to clear it out, and you could see it after 2 or 3 weeks, the difference, the obvious difference in the clarity of the water by using water bags. So very impressive stuff. And the benefit of this is that it is a safe product. It's already been consumed in many forms, in other ways, as bread, as you said. And I when you first told me that, I was gobsmacked to think, wow, okay, this has been around for a while. We're already consuming this, so it must be good for our gut bio. And obviously, if it's a bacteria and it's one of the good bacteria, why not work with that and avoid the chemical influence that exists already? Because as you know, and you're being your science background, the exposure of the chemical substance continuous obviously breaks down your own bio, and eventually you become susceptible to all sorts of problems and side effects. So this is not one of those. This is something that is the alternative, and by obvious measures, it's going to be safe for you, the environment, and the wildlife around us. We want to touch on the next one, and that's black grit, because that's another product that it's very close to my heart, because I've been working with it for a number of years now. Tell me your professional perspective, the origin of it, how it works. Everybody who has trialed it are very impressed, but for those who haven't, and those who are confusing the product, and if I can be so obvious and state, there isn't another product like it in the industry or available.
Black grit, in simple terms, is volcanic rock, apatite serpentine rock that's mined out of the mountains, and then as that form of it, it's not readily available to plants. So what's done is the rock is mined, and then it is put in a furnace and heated to 1400 degrees centigrade. So it's molten, and then it's very quickly quenched with water and shattered and ground into the grit that you have as black grit. Now, what that chemical process or that physical heating does is it produces a chemical process, so the macro compounds like calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and the silicates are presented then in an available form in the oxides. So the history of the product goes back to really, I think you probably trace it back centuries, because it's, crops. There was actually a feature on David Attenborough Vasily about the Serengeti, and it was David's found it was interesting that the animals in the Serengeti always seemed to calve well and grow well and didn't have any metabolic diseases or anything. And after looking at it, he found that there was mountains in the background that would erupt every couple of years or every year or so, and the volcanic ash would blow over the Serengeti, and then the trade winds would bring in and monsoons would bring in the rain and carry it into the soil. And of course, that's the fertilization of the soil of volcanic ash. And that's exactly You know, in layman's terms, that's what our black grit is. It's a form of volcanic ash, and it's rock that's been molten or melted like volcanic ash, and
cooled off,
and is then presented to the soil. Yeah.
And now it works as a fertilizer because you said it's got calcium, silicate, magnesium, and a phosphate macro in it. But it also works as a soil amendment. So it not only fertilizes, because I mean, we understand calcium in the silicate helps to build cell wall structure in the stem of the plant. So it's able to, you know, build its own immune system, defend itself from disease and bacteria entering it, and insect attack. But how does it work as an amendment to the soil?
It's what we call a two-in-one product, Vasily. It's got those macro elements as you described in the calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, silicates, but it also has this liming effect, and that's the second part of the effect of it. And the product is not water soluble, and that's the key to it because it doesn't leach or wash away. And so not being water soluble, it's what they call acid soluble. So when you put it in your soil or your pot or whatever you're putting it on, it actually soaks up the soil acid, which is a real problem these days, whether it's a pot plant or a pasture or a crop. And as it soaks up that soil acid, that improves the soil health and helps release these nutrients in a plant available form.
Okay, so and then the plant benefits because it's able to take up the other nutrients, as you're saying, from that. And in turn, you're avoiding blossom end rot, which we are in season now with tomatoes and people are complaining about, you know, excessive nitrogen, which is tip burning, leaf burn, and the list goes on, or undersized roots, because you've also got the phosphate, which helps develop roots. Now, on the thing about phosphate, because a lot of people do ask me, can it be used on natives? Now, before you answer that, I have, you know, I've got tons of it. I basically I bake myself in the sun in it, but I actually have, for my own purpose, done some trials, and I've thrown shovels worth around some more advanced native plants that I have, melaleucas, eucalyptus, and so far I haven't seen nothing but great results in them. They haven't gone backwards. And explain why would that be the case?
Because
the fact that it's got phosphate.
Yeah, because natives, as you have alluded there, are very sensitive to phosphorus. And in the past, chemical fertilizers, it's just too much phosphorus, you know, in a hit. So as we said earlier, the black grit is acid soluble. So it's a slow release, sustained release of nutrient, including phosphorus. So they're not getting that hit. And depending on the acidity of the soil where the natives are, it will slowly release the phosphorus. And that's why it's
a slow
useful,
introduction to it, so it doesn't burn it. And that's why.
That's it,
because there is phosphorus anywhere we are. Basically, our soils do contain it. So in some cases more than others. But as a native plant, you can't say it's growing in an environment where there's zilch phosphorus presence in that soil. So they can adapt to it. It's a case of how big or advanced or small the plant is, and maybe how delicate it is, or if it's in a good state or not, whilst you're trying to apply it. But still, always practice caution. Would you advise that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely, Vasily. And the other thing too is the black grit actually, by digesting the soil acid, improves the soil health. So various nitrogen, phosphorus, and other cycles can happen a lot more efficiently. And so the soil health and balance is more restored to the soil. And that leads to, as you've discussed earlier, less disease and stronger plants, stronger plant tissue. And the calcium, magnesium, silicates will improve soil wall strength and of course leaf integrity and we've actually noticed less pest and disease problems because of these silicates improving strength of the leaves.
Now, application. I find people are asking how often can they apply it, and I'm almost. I mean, on the commercial side of my brain says every week if you want to, but you don't need to apply it that often. You don't need to apply. You could say once a year or maybe twice a year. I'm sort of falling, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because we have a cycle of plants and we change our perennials or annuals every 6 months or thereabout. So every time we have a change of season or of plant life, We replenish the soil. I'm not one to dig it over anymore. I like to top it up, just layer it and add on top. So if I'm adding my manures or compost, I always throw a handful of black grit along with that mixture there. So maybe a few shovels and a handful of that. Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a good time to apply the black grit is at the start of the growing season, or even just a bit before then.
Yeah.
So it can, because it's not water soluble, you can get it into the soil and it can start to activate and then slowly start to soak up the soil acid and release its nutrient. And at the start of the growing season or a bit before, and then as the, whether it's an annual or perennial, then you'll see your effects in the seasonal growth of the plant.
What happens if you haven't applied it before and you want to do it now on existing plants? Is it still okay?
If you haven't, and it'll actually, you're not going to, if you've heavily fertilized with chemical fertilizers before, you're actually not going to lose the value of those. And a lot of those nutrients in the chemical ones will be locked up in the soil in that acidity and various other issues that happen with those. So the black grit will actually help.
If I could share with my experiences, my tomatoes, for example, now they have got dozens of flowers in each truss, mate. They just don't drop their flowers. It holds onto them, and that calcium silicate holds that little stem that holds the flower to the main part of the body of the plant, and it produces an abundance of crop, and the flavors are stronger. The smells, the scents, the texture of the plant, the fruit itself is amazing. So, and it's only by experience and trials that people will appreciate the benefits of using the product.
Yeah, there's been so much information, and even of recent date about the importance of calcium in our produce, and that's as well as silicate, of course, but particularly calcium, so important for shelf life. That's a big thing. I think I've heard you comment on that before as well. And how often do you go into the supermarket these days and you get some tomatoes, and then you get home and next day they're all soft and
soft, exactly. It's a shocker. So, look, the product's been around for a while now, and I know it's travelled far and wide across Australia, and plane coming over at the top, so mind the background noise. If people, those who haven't trialled the product, you'll find it again on our website, and we always are running specials there. And again, our stockist page do carry a full range of our products. If they don't have it in stock, obviously ask them to give us a call and we'll be able to get something out to them if you want to avoid the postage cost. If you're watching this now, folks, on our Facebook page, switch over to 3AW, because we'll be live in the next half hour or thereabouts, again with Andrew, who we can take your calls on any of the two products. We're talking about waterback and black grit. So we'll be doing a live discussion with Andrew on 3AW 693. You can tune in online if you like, or if you're in Victoria, tune in on your dial there. Give us a call with your queries. If you've had some great responses or results, even if it hasn't been not so great, let us know what's gone wrong. See if we can help you with that. And especially waterbacks as well, because I know a lot of people love our black grit, but I'm sure they're going to love even more so the waterback product. So looking forward to it, and thank you again, Andrew. It's been wonderful. I'll be talking to you in about half an hour, mate. Live on the phone. And don't forget our website, facilitiesgarden.com. You can get it, buy one get one free with your 20% off. There's a code to be applied there, so check it out at the bottom of the screen.